I have to say, it's been incredibly maddening because Tony Blair was pushing through something like 7 pieces of legislation a day when he was in power. And now Boris has this remarkable sort of reservoir of strength with which he could be reorganizing the country along, I guess, what we could call a traditional sort of conservative view. And nothing's happened. So I find myself looking at the situation thinking, right, it surely has to be that they don't really have a good grounding in what sort of traditional conservatism should be. So what do you think they should be pushing from when it comes to that? How should they frame what they're saying and presenting it to the public with a strong eye on knowing that the press is going to try and twist this?
So the press isn't on side anyway. The press is going to twist it anyway. So forget it. Just speak what you think. Say what's on your mind. That's what people want. People are sick of doublespeak. People are sick of politics and politicians talking politics. We want ordinary folk up there saying ordinary things and sharing opinions that we all share, and not being afraid to do that. I think the majority of this country is small c conservative. The vote share at the last election proves that. Yeah. So don't be afraid of it. If you want to get up there and say, that this is a brilliant country, it's one of the best places in the world to live, and that's why many immigrants move over here, and that is proof that it is not an institutionally racist country, then say that. Don't be afraid to say it. Don't and ah around it and tread on eggshells, because we're sick and tired of that nonsense.
So I think the rejoinder to that would be something like, well, look at these statistics. These prove that this is a racist country and we need to do more. How do the Conservatives disarm that counterattack?
Yeah, good. Use those statistics. The problem is the left don't care about statistics. They don't care about facts and evidence. But if they want to look at them, fantastic, because they would work in our favor, because we know that this isn't an institutionally racist country. We know this is a fantastic place. So what the stats show, if we look at them, so take, for example, the Sewell report that recently came out, it broke down many, many racial disparities and looked at the core issues and found that actually, racial disparity isn't irrefutable evidence of racism, and it usually points towards other social and economic issues, usually class, but there is, wealth, family background, all kinds of things come into play. So yeah, we have many issues in this country that need addressing, and just because there's a disparity based on race doesn't mean that the issue itself is based on race. It doesn't mean that racism is occurring. When people say, well, how come more black people get arrested for X, Y, Z? It's like we can choose. We can cherry pick stats all we want, but we've got to look at the issue that's going on there. They said one of the common ones this past month has been, why do Black mothers die more in childbirth than white mothers? And that's a very good statistic to look at, because you look at that stat, it's easy to say, oh, well, because the NHS is institutionally racist, obviously. But that is just rhetoric. That's not looking at the cause of the problem.
That's a cop-out.
But it is a cop-out, because even, it doesn't pass the common sense test.
It doesn't answer anything, does it?
Are you assuming that nurses, who tend to be immigrants themselves, to be honest, we don't have that many white British nurses, are going to treat a Black mother different to a white mother? I don't think that's the case. But even if it was, we'd have to look at why that was going on. But that we can cherry pick those stats. So we could say, if I was going to cherry pick a stat, say, so why are white cancer patients dying more regularly than Black cancer patients? What's going on there? Institutional racism? Of course not. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So what we have to do is stop letting them pick stats and to actually go deep dive into them and find out what's going on, what's causing those issues, and say, we can't just assume a racial disparity is evidence of racism. Let's take a look at what's going on behind the curtains.
I'm glad you brought up the Tony Sewell's race commission report, because I think this is probably the best thing the Conservatives have ever done in the fight against the constant left-wing innovation of the country. The key issue that I think that came out of it, the key statistic that came out of it, is the disparity between Black Caribbeans and West African migrants. And I found this really fascinating, because they come from the same region of the world, so you can reasonably assume they're basically the same people on the inside. But there is clearly a massive difference in mindset between these two groups. And I really feel that this is where the Conservatives are completely dropping the ball. Because if you have one aspirational group of people and one group of people who are not aspirational and have many social issues, then surely you need to be thinking in terms of the ethics of these different, but separate but very similar communities, right?
Right, so that's the nail on the head. First of all, this isn't the best thing the Conservatives have ever done, because this is not a Conservative commission. This was an independent commission, which is why it's so good. It had nothing to do with the government. That's why it's so fantastic. All the commissioners on there are very respected in their own independent fields. But yes, the differences between Black African and Black Caribbean people in particular is one that I've pointed out many times, as a school teacher, because I saw firsthand how poorly Black Caribbean kids were doing in comparison to Black African kids. And people say, it's, the education system is racist. And I'm like, well, obviously it's not, because Black kids in general aren't doing poorly. It's Black Caribbean kids that are doing poorly. Black African kids are excelling pretty much every other racial demographic. So are you suggesting somehow that teachers are racist towards one set of Black kids but not other Black kids? When I don't honestly think most white teachers will know the difference between a Black Caribbean and a Black African kid unless they delved further into it. But it is about mindsets, and it is very much, like you said, these immigrant families, so newer immigrant families, first and second generation, have a different mindset than families that have been here a longer time and more integrated, because white British kids are doing pretty much the same as Black Caribbean kids. And it is that British mindset that we've lost this sense of social mobility, of climbing the ladder, this Thatcherite mentality of working your way out of poverty. We've lost all that in this country. And that's why when people come over to this country fresh from somewhere else and they've still got those family values and that hard-working mindset, they do so much better than people that have been here for a long time. So we need to regain that aspirational mindset. We need to regain those family values, 2 parents, stable home, strong emphasis on a good education, and that being the key to a successful life. That is what we need to cling on to. And we need to learn that from these immigrant families. That's something we can take away that they bring with them, and we need to regain it, and it will help everyone. We need to raise aspirations and raise expectations for everybody and not focus on individual social demographics.
So what do you think that a Conservative government could do policy-wise to encourage and incentivize this kind of mindset to flourish? Because I think you're absolutely correct in your analysis of that. I think that's exactly the problem. And exactly as you say, there's just simply no way you can put this down to racism, because these people are of exactly the same race. And it's just a different historical trajectory that they've both followed. So what can the government do?
I think stop diluting marriage. So for the last decade or so, marriage has become less and less important. And marriage is, at the essence of a family life, and family values are so important because that is what brings all of this together. That's what brings society together. That's what encourages education and all these things. We've made divorce easier. We've made it so that marriage is essentially meaningless if you're living together. It's pretty much the same thing at this point. So the commitment is gone, as well as the unity under God. And that is important because marriage comes from Christian values. And that's another thing that we keep forgetting. And that's another thing that immigrant families or newer immigrant families have over longer term British families, is that they still have their faith. And a lot of our morals in this country, people say you don't need to be Christian, you don't need a religion because we've got British morals. Yes, sure, fair enough. But where do they come from? That comes from Christianity. That's where we get our family values from. And the more we step away from that, the more we forget it. So we need to reclaim Christian values, be proud that they are British values, and stop pushing policies that dilute marriage and promote divorce and abortion and all of these terribly anti-family ideas, and be proud to be pro-family. It's not a bad thing. Just to suggest that fatherlessness is an issue will raise people's shekels, because they'll be like, what are you saying? Are you against single parent families and all this kind of stuff? It's like people are so quick to look at the negative and flip it to be offended. I'm not against, I was raised by a single parent, to be honest. I'm not against single parent families, but what I'm saying is you have a better chance in life if you're not from a single parent family, which means we should promote family stability. And that's not taking anything away from single parents, because people can't help being single parents, but we shouldn't encourage that. We should promote stability. And surely that's not a bad thing. And people who see it as a bad thing, I think the issue is on them.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.